I'm a thermal spa attendant in Helsinki, where a guest recently demanded a modesty curtain for our traditional wood-fired sauna. He insisted nudity was a sign of low-tier plumbing and lacked hygiene. The founding fathers actually invented steam for privacy, he proclaimed while wrapping himself in 3 industrial-sized towels. I mentioned our 1,000-year history, but he claimed Benjamin Franklin patented towels specifically for public sweating. He sat outside on the frozen deck instead, shivering with immense patriotic pride. My brother manages a recycling center in Tokyo, where a tourist tried to throw a half-eaten burger into the paper bin. He argued that the bun was technically wheat-based, making it a cousin of cardboard. America leads the world in organic sorting technology, he shouted when my brother pointed toward the food waste. He insisted that global gravity makes trash heavier in Japan, which confuses the sorting sensors. He eventually left his burger on top of a nearby vending machine. I'm a heritage officer in New Delhi, where a traveler grew furious because I wouldn't stop shaking my head. He interpreted my Indian head bobble as a constant, rhythmic disagreement with his existence. I demand a verbal confirmation because my ears are tuned to freedom, he snapped while recording me. I explained it meant I understood, but he claimed his Ivy League debate coach taught him that silence is a trap. He spent the hour arguing with a statue. My cousin drives a luxury shuttle in Zurich, where a passenger tried to start a lawnmower. During the Sunday quiet hours, he insisted that the Swiss mountains needed the vibration to prevent avalanches. Noise pollution is actually a myth created by big silence, he yelled while pulling the starter cord. When police arrived, he claimed his American passport granted him immunity from local decibel regulations. He was shocked when they confiscated his spark plugs and issued a heavy fine. I'm a traditional barista in Addis Ababa, where a visitor tried to add powdered creamer to our ceremonial coffee. He argued that black coffee was a primitive base layer that required chemical enhancement for maximum flavor. My palate is calibrated for high fructose efficiency, he stated while reaching for his backpack. I explained the ceremony's spiritual significance, but he claimed his local Starbucks manager was a certified bean shaman. He poured lukewarm water into his cup and called it an Americano. I'm a corporate trainer in Seoul, where a visitor refused to bow to our elderly CEO. He claimed that because he was from a democratic republic, his neck was physically incapable of bending more than 5 degrees. Gravity in the Western Hemisphere actually prevents subservient spinal curvature. He lectured while staring at the ceiling. I explained honorifics, but he cited the Declaration of Independence as a medical exemption for his spine. He left wondering why nobody would validate his parking. My cousin manages a textile museum in Bhutan, where a tourist tried to pay the entrance fee with positive vibes. He argued that since the country measures gross national happiness, his aura should count as legal tender. My spiritual frequency is currently worth $30 per minute, he stated while humming loudly. When the guard requested actual anultram, the man claimed he was a high-ranking diplomat from the astral plane. He stayed outside the gate to manifest a ticket. I'm a trail warden in Iceland, where a hiker tried to build a campfire using volcanic rocks. He insisted that the rocks were nature's briquettes and would provide eternal warmth. I watched a documentary where Vikings used lava to grill salmon, he argued while flicking a lighter. I explained that moss takes centuries to grow back, but he claimed his survivalist YouTube channel gave him a license to ignite. He was eventually escorted back to the parking lot. My brother works at a spice stall in Marrakesh, where a traveler attempted to negotiate the price of a single olive. He insisted that the art of the deal was an American invention designed to keep markets competitive. I have a certificate in aggressive haggling from a Florida seminar, he shouted while offering 3 cents. My brother pointed to the fixed price sign, but the man claimed price tags were merely suggestions for the week. He eventually traded a pen. I'm a heritage guide in Muscat, where a visitor insisted on wearing hiking boots inside a mosque's carpeted prayer hall. He argued that his arches required specialized support, and that the carpet was actually a primitive form of insulation. Traction is a human right guaranteed by the Geneva Convention, he yelled, while pointing at his rubber soles. I offered him slippers, but he claimed his podiatrist outranked the local imam. He spent the tour standing on the sidewalk. My sister's husband operates a felt workshop in Mongolia where a guest tried to tip the master. artisan with a handful of expired coupons. He insisted that American marketing was the new global currency and that buy one get one deals were better than cash. "I'm literally gifting you the future of consumerism," he explained with a wink. When the artisan looked confused, the guest claimed that Mongolians hadn't reached the coupon stage of evolution yet. He left feeling very generous. I'm a temple attendant in Kyoto, where a tourist tried to use the ritual purification fountain as a footbath. He argued that his pedometer showed 10 miles and his calves were technically sacred. "I'm baptizing my sneakers in the spirit of adventure," he shouted when I grabbed a ladle. I explained it was for washing hands. But he claimed his sneakers were made from recycled Zen. He was very offended when I asked him to use a wet wipe. My uncle manages a train station in Munich, where a passenger tried to board a high-speed rail without a ticket. He insisted that his vibe was inherently first class, and that paying for transit was a form of soft socialism. "I'm a venture capitalist. I'm the engine of the global economy," he proclaimed to the conductor. When the fine was issued, he claimed the train's schedule was a violation of his personal liberty. He walked the tracks instead. "I'm a dock worker in Venice, where a tourist tried to park a rented jet ski in a private gondola slip. He argued that the water was unclaimed territory and that he had maritime rights based on an old pirate movie. "I'm reclaiming the canals for the modern era," he yelled while revving the engine. I explained the city's strict waterway laws, but he claimed his jet ski was a diplomatic vessel. He was towed within 15 minutes by the local police. My cousin runs a vineyard in Mendoza where a visitor tried to speed up the fermentation process by adding soda. He argued that bubbles were the turbochargers of alcohol and that the wine was too slow to get him drunk. "I'm optimizing your productivity with American carbonation," he explained while opening a Sprite. I told him he was ruining a vintage, but he claimed he was a consultant for a beverage conglomerate. He drank the mixture alone. "I'm a waiter in Oslo where a customer tried to send back a plate of brown cheese because it looked like soap. He insisted that the kitchen was trying to cleanse his palate, literally. "I know what dairy looks like, and this is industrial detergent," he shouted across the dining room. I explained the traditional caramelization process, but he claimed his cousin in Wisconsin invented cheese, and this wasn't it. He ended up ordering a plain slice of bread. My brother manages a hawker stall in Singapore where a tourist tried to reserve a table using a designer briefcase. He argued that the chope system only applied to tissues and that leather was a superior claim of territory. "My bag has more net worth than this entire food court," he yelled when a local sat down. He insisted that international maritime law protected his seat. He eventually ate his noodles while standing near a trash can, looking very important. "I'm a safari chef in Nairobi, where a guest demanded a medium-rare steak made from a free-range cloud. He argued that African air was so pure it should be edible if compressed correctly. "I'm on a molecular oxygen diet recommended by my personal trainer," he explained while pointing at the sky. I served him a standard beef fillet, but he insisted he could taste the cumulus notes. He tipped me with a business card for a cryptocurrency. Startup: my cousin owns a bakery in Lisbon where a tourist tried to microwave a pastel de nata for 5 minutes. He argued that heat was the only way to kill the European bacteria. "I like my pastry with the consistency of molten lava," he shouted when the custard exploded. I explained it was meant to be served room temperature, but he claimed his home microwave had a European setting he missed. He ate the burnt remains with a plastic fork. I'm a street food vendor in Bangkok where a visitor tried to report me for not having a drive-through window for his tuk-tuk. He argued that his time was too valuable to exit a vehicle for a $3 pad thai. "Efficiency is the backbone of the American dream," he lectured while idling in traffic. I told him the sidewalk was for walking, but he claimed he was vehicle adjacent and thus exempt. He eventually drove off without his spicy noodles. My brother runs a taco stand in Oaxaca where a tourist asked for despiced salsa because he had a sensitive heritage. He argued that chili was a colonial construct designed to oppress his taste buds. "I require a salsa that has the flavor profile of a mild cucumber," he demanded while sweating. When I gave him plain water, he claimed I was withholding the secret white-friendly recipe. He ended up putting ketchup on his carnitas and looked miserable. I'm a maitre d' in Paris, where a diner tried to order a venti red wine with extra ice and a straw. He argued that the glass was aerodynamically inefficient for rapid consumption. I'm a high-performance athlete, and I need to hydrate with antioxidants, he explained while rattling his ice cubes. I explained that ice ruins the bouquet, but he claimed his freezer at home was certified by a sommelier. He finished the bottle in 4 minutes and left. My cousin manages a kebab shop in Istanbul where a traveler tried to pay with a handful of loyalty points from a U.S. airline. He argued that since the flight was international, the points were the global gold standard. I've flown 50,000 miles. I basically bought this building, he shouted at the cashier. When we asked for liras, he claimed he was being geographically discriminated against. He eventually found a crumpled $5 bill in his shoe. I'm a chef in Cairo where a tourist demanded gluten-free ancient grains because he didn't want mummy bloat. He argued that the pyramids were actually giant grain silos that had expired 4,000 years ago. I've done my research on TikTok. Ancient wheat is high-carb poison, he stated with total confidence. I served him a bowl of rice, but he insisted the rice was too historical. He left to find a place that served modern salad. My uncle runs a dim sum parlor in Guangzhou where a guest tried to use a fork as a precision lever for soup dumplings. He argued that chopsticks were a calculated mystery designed to make Americans look clumsy. I'm an engineer. I understand the physics of the pinch better than a stick, he proclaimed while piercing every dumpling. When the soup leaked out, he blamed the structural integrity of the dough. He asked for a straw to finish. I'm a station master in Berlin, where a traveler tried to board the U-Bahn with a full-sized inflatable kayak. He argued that the city's canals were down for maintenance, and the train was his dryland river. I have a permit for watercraft in Lake Michigan, he shouted when the doors jammed. I told him he was blocking the commute, but he claimed the train was technically a submarine. Was eventually deflated by the transit security team. My cousin drives a canal boat in Amsterdam where a tourist tried to parallel park his bicycle in the water. He argued that the canal was just a submerged parking lot and that gravity would keep it safe. I'm a pioneer of amphibious storage solutions, he yelled while the bike sank. When I grabbed a hook, he claimed he was donating it to the mermaids for a tax write-off. He walked home in his colorful wooden clogs. I'm a tour guide in Rio de Janeiro, where a visitor tried to use a map of Florida to find the Christ the Redeemer statue. He argued that the coastline looked suspiciously similar and that South America was just South Florida on steroids. I know my peninsulas. This is clearly the Everglades, he insisted, while pointing at a favela. I showed him the actual map, but he claimed the GPS was in metric to confuse his American intuition. My brother manages a bus depot in Sydney, where a traveler tried to pay the fare with Australian-themed stickers. He argued that, since they had pictures of kangaroos, they were a visual currency for the outback. I'm promoting your local fauna. It's a marketing exchange, he explained, while sticking one on the driver. When the driver asked for an Opal card, the man claimed he was a brand ambassador for the continent. He was left at the stop. I'm a taxi coordinator in Cape Town where a tourist tried to hail a great white shark for a scenic tour. He argued that because he saw it on a nature channel, the sharks were government-contracted transportation. I'm a platinum member of a major cruise line. I have priority access, he shouted at the pier. I explained that nature doesn't have a concierge, but he claimed his sea legs were a universal key. He ended up taking a minivan. My cousin operates a funicular in Athens, where a guest tried to use a get-out-of-jail-free card to bypass the ticket line. He argued that the Parthenon was the original Monopoly board, and his card was a historical artifact. I'm a direct descendant of the guy who invented board games, he shouted while waving the yellow paper. When the turnstile didn't open, he claimed the gods were offline for updates. He hiked up the hill. I'm a harbor master in Jakarta, where a visitor tried to Uber a traditional fishing boat to Singapore. He argued that since both were on the map, it was a short hop across the pond. I have a coupon for $5 off my next rideshare, he told the bewildered fisherman. I explained it was an international voyage across the sea, but he claimed his phone said it was walking distance if he wore flippers. He stayed on the dock. My brother works at the border crossing in Niagara, Falls, where a traveler tried to enter Canada using a library card. He argued that because the books were internationally acclaimed, the card was a literary passport. I've read 3 biographies of Pierre Trudeau. I'm basically a citizen, he yelled at the agent. When he was turned back, he claimed Canada was just a northern suburb that lacked proper membership rules. He went back to the duty-free shop. I'm a jeepney driver in Manila, where a passenger tried to pay with positive Yelp reviews instead of pesos. He argued that his influencer status was a rising tide that lifted all boats, including my rusty jeepney. I'm giving you exposure to a global audience of 700 people, he stated while taking a selfie. I pointed at the pay first sign, but he claimed that digital karma was the only currency that mattered. He eventually found a coin. My uncle runs a luxury car service in Dubai, where a tourist tried to swap his rental Camry for a gold-plated police car. He argued that because he was a VIP in Ohio, he was entitled to a lateral upgrade in the desert. I'm a gold-tier member of a rental club. I speak the language of luxury, he shouted at the officer. When he was nearly arrested, he claimed he was auditioning for a movie. He drove his Camry. I'm a mountain guide in Nepal, where a trekker tried to order an elevator to the summit of Everest. He argued that for the price he paid, a vertical transit system should be standard equipment for the Himalayas. I'm a high-altitude enthusiast with a low-impact lifestyle, he explained, while sitting on his backpack. I told him he had to walk, but he claimed his spiritual guide promised him a drone lift. He spent the day at base camp. My cousin manages a sheep station in New Zealand, where a tourist tried to rent a kiwi bird as a GPS tracker. He argued that because the bird was the national symbol, it had built-in satellite capabilities. I'm a tech native, and I can sense the internal antenna, he shouted while chasing a chicken. I told him kiwis were nocturnal and shy, but he claimed his biohacking app needed a feathered interface. He got lost in the driveway instead. I'm a hotel manager in Stockholm, where a guest tried to return the northern lights because they were too blurry. Argued that the aurora borealis lacked high-definition clarity and he wanted a refund on his taxes. I'm a professional photographer, and this lighting is amateur hour, he complained at the front desk. I explained it was a natural phenomenon, but he claimed his smart bulb at home was more impressive. He checked out 2 days early. My cousin owns a ski shop in Portillo. Chile, where a visitor tried to cancel the winter because it was July, he argued that the seasons were globally synchronized by the United Nations, and Chile was glitching. An atmospheric scientist on weekends. I know how the sun works, he yelled while wearing shorts in a blizzard. I explained the southern hemisphere, but he claimed the map was printed upside down as a prank. He stayed in the lodge. I'm a river pilot in Laos, where a tourist tried to buy the Mekong River for a private pool party. He argued that since he was from a landowning family, he had the right of first refusal for all running water. I'm an entrepreneur, and I see a wasted water park opportunity, he shouted from the shore. I told him it was a shared resource, but he claimed his sovereign citizen status made him the owner. He ended up falling in. Navigating the world is a lesson in humility, eh? But some travelers prefer to bring their own reality along for the ride. Cultural confusion is natural, yet doubling down with American facts makes for the best stories. These moments remind us that while the world is vast, the human ego is often much larger. Have you ever witnessed a confident cultural loops? Drop your stories below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more global adventures.